What is up, YouTube? This is Flygon, your Chef the Cat, back again for another video. Now at this point, I'm sure a lot of you guys are asking yourself, Hypergon, what the hell's with this description down here? Pokemon? That's not what this channel is. This is a Yu-Gi-Oh channel. Where's the Yu-Gi-Oh? Well, truth be told, this week is actually the week of my birthday. So I decided to kind of mix things up a little bit this week and do something a little bit different for a change. Now, that's not to say that I'm not doing any more Yu-Gi-Oh! This is just a one-time little thing because it's my birthday and I feel like doing something different. So, doing something different. And I decided to go with another aspect of my life that is pretty big, and that is my love for Pokemon. Truth be told, I've actually been playing Pokemon longer than I've been playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And I'm honestly a lot more competitive in that than I am in, the game this channel's about. But regardless, given that fact, I have my own fair sets of opinions, and I figured the best place to start, especially since this isn't exactly going to be a regular thing, would be to go with my top 10 favorite Pokemon. Now, this list was actually a little easier than I thought it would be, but it's still pretty difficult all the same, because you need to bear in mind, this has required I take 10 Pokemon out of, at this point, 721. Presumably more to be added later, Generation 7 will ever get confirmed. But that is neither here nor there. Right now, we're going to take time to look at my top 10 favorite Pokemon of all time, starting with number 10. So, starting off this list, we have one of my personal favorite little Pokemon, native to the Hoenn region, Sableye. Sableye was one of those Virgin exclusive Pokemon from Ruby and Sapphire that was only available in Sapphire. Ruby got Mawile. And unfortunately, the version I played was Ruby, so I didn't get a whole lot of a chance to play with him. However, come round Emerald, where some of them were a bit more varied up, and you could get certain exclusives, I was actually able to get a Sableye, and oh my god, did that thing carry me all the way through. Sableye's a tiny little guy, but at the same time, he can pack a lot of punch if you know how to use him right. I actually have two Sableye. One intended to be a Mega, and another one for is just usual prankster stall set. Both actually work out very nicely for me. I have a lot of fun with him. And on top of that, I think he's just kind of adorable in that creepy little sense. I don't know. I just really like Sableye. I think he's cool. And the gimmick that he had prior to Generation 6, having no weaknesses at all, sharing that with Spiritomb, I thought was actually pretty cool. So, for that reason, I thoroughly enjoy Sableye. Moving on to number 9. Next up, we have the first legendary Pokemon, actually, on my list, and it would be none other than Darkrai. Yes, for me, Darkrai is just one of the coolest Pokemon out there. There's not a lot of Pokemon that have terribly good sleep moves, except for Darkrai, who has the only one that hits 100% of the time, the exception being Spore, but only like 4 Pokemon in the world can learn that one. But regardless, I think he's a pretty badass Pokemon. I mean, just looking at him, he has that red body with the red chin jaw thing. I don't even know how to describe that. And he only ever has just the one eye showing. It just looks really, really cool. Plus a Pokemon that's able to, like, just create nightmares. I think that's badass as hell. So, for that reason alone, Darkrai gets the number 9 spot on my list. There's a pretty big divide within the Pokemon world, one that's been going on since the introduction of Hoenn, and it's been between two rival classes. Arguably the biggest divide we've ever seen since Team Edward and Team Jacob. However, this one is far greater. It's the divide on whether or not you like Flygon or Salamence more. Both are incredibly powerful Dragon-type Pokemon, especially for the Hoenn region. Naturally, even I have my own preference in the divide. So which one am I? Am I with the ground type or the flyer? Okay, with the ground type. Flygon for me is just such a badass Pokemon. Salamence is cool too, but I just like Flygon that much more. Neither one can be hit by ground type moves, but he gets stabbed off of Earthquake. And honestly, I've just always kind of liked his bug-like design more. Plus, even with his own evolutionary line, there's some pretty interesting little things they decided to do. I'm not sure if you guys are aware of this, but Trapinch, his initial evolutionary form, actually has the same base attack stat of 100, since the evolutionary line is based off the Antlion, in which the larva is incredibly aggressive. I thought that was a cool little touch, and again, it just kind of helps elevate it to a step above Salamence for me. So, for me, my number 8 spot easily has to go to Flygon. Now we move on to number 7. Next up, we have yet another legendary Pokemon. This time, we're going again back to the Hoenn region for this one, in which we will find Rayquaza, or Rayquaza. I don't remember how you say it. I say Rayquaza. So, anyway, the thing that I like about this guy is just that he is just this badass Chinese dragon-looking thing, and he's able to calm down the 2 other members of his group, the Creation... no, it's not the Creation Tree. He's able to stop Groudon and Kyogre merely by his own presence, which is shown in the Emerald game, where when the 2 of them are clashing into Topless City, he just comes down and says enough, and the weather stops, and they just kind of go underground to their own respective areas. I just thought that was a really, really cool touch, the way they did that. So, and on top of that, his Mega Evolution is just incredible. It looks so streamlined, and it removes his weaknesses? That's incredible! I never would have thought of something to do that. It just completely removes all weaknesses to the flying types. And honestly, I could ramble on all day about how much I love Rayquaza, but for the sake of time, I'll go ahead and stop now. Let's go ahead and move on to the next spot on our list. Next up, we have yet another Pokemon from the Hoenn region, Milotic. This Pokemon for me is such just a majestic creature to look at. It's incredibly beautiful in its design, which makes sense since it can only be achieved by evolving a Feebas with maxed out beauty stat, unless you did it in Generation 5, in which you had that prism scale bullshit. But my Milotics have always been the ones where you need to max out the beauty stat, which made it far more rewarding, especially back in Generation 3, where that was no easy feat to accomplish. Now, Milotic for me is more than just that, because as of late, I've also kind of started to see it as like this dragon slayer of a Pokemon. Because some of the moves it gets are just made to kill dragons. It can learn several Ice-type moves, it can learn Dragon Pulse. I wish it could learn Dazzling Gleam. That would really kind of drive the point home. Unfortunately, it is incapable of learning that, but hopefully within the next generation, or even within the next game, Milotic will get some form of a Mega Evolution in which it does become part Fairy type, as everyone is saying. Along with a few other guys I would like to get Mega Evolutions, some of which I previously mentioned on this list. But, no sense in holding a grudge, this isn't a Mega Evolution video, this is just my favorite Pokemon, and for me, Milotic is just an elegant, beautiful creature to look at, and that has earned it its place on my list. Moving on to number 5. So, the number 5 spot on my list goes to a Pokemon that I feel has quite a bit of missed potential there, and that Pokemon is Luxray. Luxray is undoubtedly my favorite Electric-type Pokemon of all time. And how can it not be? I mean, it has such a badass looking design. I realize it's not based off of a lion. I originally thought it was too, but no, I do realize that it isn't. It's based on a lynx or something like that. But it doesn't change the fact that it still looks like a badass little Pokemon. But as I said, I feel like it's a bit of a missed opportunity there, and it had some untapped potential. And that being its typing. Why is this thing a mono-dark type? Mono-electric type? I don't understand. It looks like it should be an electric-dark type. So, why isn't it? It learns Crunch via level up, so it makes perfect sense that it would be. But for some stupid reason, it just isn't. Instead, we're just left with this thing that can really only get Stab off of Wild Charge or something. And, I don't know, I'm hoping that, again, they'll give it a Mega Evolution in a later generation or a later game, in which they will fix that and give it some badass ability, like Strong Jaw, Tough Claws, or even Speed Boost. But again, I'm not going to linger on that fact for too long. I just feel like this thing should be part Dark type, but it isn't, and that does not take away from how much I love this thing. It'd probably just bump it up a spot or two, but regardless, Luxray for me is still the best Electric-type Pokemon I've ever seen, and easily the number 5 spot on my list. Moving on now to number 4. Next up, we have the final legendary Pokemon on this list. Now, I realize I've had some badass legendaries prior to, those being Darkrai and Rayquaza, but for me there's one that just stands above both of them, and all other legendaries, really. And it may surprise you which one I say it is. It's actually Latios. Of the two Eon twins, I've always liked Latios more. Again, I had Ruby in Generation 3, so that was the one that I got. But even without that, I just think it looks like a much cooler Pokemon, and a Dragon Psychic type is something we hadn't seen prior to or since. It's a really cool idea. It has a very streamlined design, and I just love that it just looks like it's so fast. I realize there are faster things, but at the same time, it doesn't change how cool it looks. And in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, or Omega Ruby specifically in this case, where you can fly around on the back of a Mega Latios, that's easily one of my favorite parts about this game, just because it lets me enjoy my favorite my favorite legendary, in a way that I've never been able to before. So, Latios for me is awesome enough as it is, but that feature just kind of makes it all the better. But nonetheless, it is still my favorite legendary type Pokemon, and my number 4th favorite Pokemon. Now we move on to number 3. Next up, we have yet another divide amongst the Pokemon community. This one's a bit bigger, though. It's not just between two set Pokemon. It's actually between, I believe now it's 7? I'm talking, of course, about pseudo-legendaries. There's at least one introduced in every generation, and all of them are amazing. Of course, those being Dragonite, Tyranitar, Metagross, Salamence, Garchomp, Hydreigon, and Goodra. Hey, I was right, it is 7. But it's time for me to point out which one of them is my favorite. Obviously not Salamence, since he got trumped by Flygon, so inherently he can't be it. So which of the remaining 6 do I like most? Well, I gotta stick with where I'm most comfortable, and I have to say I'm most comfortable in the Hoenn region, and that leaves Metagross. One of the only 2 not dragon pseudo-legendaries, Metagross for me is just so freaking awesome. A Steel Psychic type like that has access to a very powerful moveset, plus his physical attack is just astounding. And then you take into the fact that this thing can Mega Evolve and get the Tough Claws ability? Nothing can survive this thing. It's just amazing. Plus, it's an excellent counter now to the brand new Fairy type, so he has that going for him as well. And he was the main Pokemon of the champion of Hoenn before Emerald came around, Steven. But even then, in Emerald, you could still fight Steven, and his boss monster was still the Metagross. Hell, he even gives you a Beldum in-game. And for me, this Metagross is just such an insane powerhouse of a Pokemon that he easily trumps all the other pseudos. I realize he's not the best pseudo out there, that's arguably goes to Garchomp, but regardless, Metagross is still my personal favorite, and so for that, he has to have the number 3 spot on my list. Moving on to number 2. Next up, we have my number 2 spot. Now, if someone had to ask me what my personal favorite type of Pokemon is, I'd easily have to say it's the flying type. I don't know why, but something about just the wind element in all kinds of things just always really pulls me in. And since there technically isn't a wind type, I had to go with the next best thing, flying types. Plus, they just kind of complement my battle style really nicely. They're all usually just really fast sweepers, so for me, that's just kind of my battle style. It works out nicely for me. But now, if you took that and asked me to pick my favorite Pokemon from that type, it would have to go to Crobat. The weird thing is, Crobat's actually a fairly new love for me. I didn't really discover how great he was until this generation, Generation 6, back in X and Y. And I just decided one day, let me just try out a Crobat, see how it works. I bred one up, gave it the moveset of Confuse Ray, Acrobatics, Cross Poison, and U-Turn, did not give it a hold item, and I named him Dizzy. Dizzy for me, even though it was just a generally bred thing, I breed it, anything like that, didn't give it an ideal nature, I just EV'd the thing and moved on. But this thing was still just a destroyer of worlds. It could just breeze through most things after stunning them with Confuse Ray, which had an amazingly high yield of results there. And then it would just continue to destroy things with its incredibly powerful moveset. It truly just blew my mind how powerful this thing was. It could do no wrong. I've since then bred several Crobats, and all of them have done me a fair amount of justice. I don't know what it is about Crobat, I just love him forever, I always will. However, he cannot hold the top spot as much as I love Crobat. Now we need to see who it is that rules the roost. I'm sure by now you guys have probably noticed that there's a fair amount of Hoenn Pokemon on this list. And there is a fair reason for that. Despite the fact that I did grow up during the time when Pokemon was getting started and at its, honestly, peak, I really wasn't that into it. My first game that I technically owned was Pokemon Yellow. However, me and my family only had one Game Boy Color, and my dad, not realizing that there were no multiple save files on this, decided that it would be best for me and my younger brother to share it. I'm sure you all can imagine how well that worked out. Needless to say, in a game where you're supposed to set out and make your own adventure in your own style, doesn't really work when you gotta share that style with somebody else. So I didn't really get too into it, plus I was really young at the time, so I didn't really understand the full aspect of it. I don't think we ever really even beat it. I think we only got as far as Sabrina or something like that. I don't really remember. But regardless, coming around Generation 2, same issue. We had Crystal, but we had to share it. I remember the frustrations with Yellow, and I just decided, you know what, screw it, he can have it. I don't really care that much. It didn't really do a whole lot for me, but again, the experience was tainted. Then, came around Generation 3, my dad finally realized, oh, I should probably get them their own separate games for this, since it doesn't seem to be something they can share. So, he got Sapphire, and I got Ruby. And out of that, inherently, your favorite Pokemon is usually going to be your starter. So, relax, there is a point to all this. And that means that my personal favorite Pokemon would have to be the starter of my real first adventure, which would be Hoenn. So, who did I pick? Did I pick the sleek and speedy Sceptile? Did I pick the Kung Fu Master Blaziken? Or did I pick everyone's favorite pre-evolution Mudkip in his final form as Swampert? Well, it may surprise you all to know this, but actually, Blaziken. I didn't really enjoy the idea of Mudkip all that much, though he was cute, it didn't really do much for me. And I actually have a burning hatred for Sceptile, but we'll get more into that a little bit later. Blaziken for me is easily my favorite Pokemon, and it doesn't even have anything to do with the fact that he's good. Truth be told, I didn't realize until my college years that he was in Ubers. Which I realize that's only because of Speed Boost, which would have been fairly recent, but regardless, that has nothing to do with it. It's just kind of the cherry on top for me, if you will. For me, Blaziken just has such an amazing design. He's such a badass looking Pokemon, and I just love him for it. Plus, like I said, he was my first Pokemon ever out of anything. That was mine and mine alone. So, for me, the adventure that I shared with him was just incredible. It was the first Pokemon I got to level 100. I was able to just blaze through the entirety of the Elite Four with just him, relying on only a small handful of Hyper Potions. And even then, I've made several Blazikens since, kind of like I did with Crobat. Each one of them is near and dear to my heart. I have one that's a Focus Sash set, my personal favorite. Another one's for my Mega Evolution, and then a third one is actually a throwback to the original Blaziken. Unfortunately, I did lose that old copy of it because, I don't know, I don't know what happened to my old Ruby version, so my original Blaziken is gone and lost forever, but his memory lives on with me. Now, like I said, I'm not overly fond of Sceptile, and that's actually because of the ongoing feud I had with my brother. Inherently, since we both had our own Pokemon games, we would battle each other quite a bit. And usually it would come down to our aces, my Blaziken and his Sceptile. Sometimes we just do a mono battle just to see what would happen. And unfortunately, he discovered a little trick with Sceptile that made it so I could never beat him. It all comes down to two simple words. Aerial Ace. I did not realize that Sceptile was faster than me because, again, I was a lot younger then, so I didn't fully understand how it worked. And so he was usually able to get off a move that would essentially destroy my Blaziken every time. If I was lucky, I would survive and I could usually get off a Blaze Kick, but the problem is Blaze Kick did not have 100% accuracy then, nor does it now. So if it missed, I was screwed and I had lost. Also, if I didn't get the kill, then he was going to get it next turn anyway, since Aerial Ace never misses. So that led to a lot of built-up anxiety with me and Sceptile. Needless to say, I don't hate Sceptile as a Pokemon, I just hate his Sceptile. But that has done nothing to deter my love for the fiery chicken himself, and Blaziken is easily my #1 favorite Pokemon of all time. So, what did you guys think? Was this a fun little distraction from the usual bout of Yu-Gi-Oh? Needless to say, this isn't going to become a regular thing. This is, again, just because it's my birthday this week, so I wanted to do something a little bit special. But if you did enjoy this, let me know down in the comments below, and who knows, maybe I'll just make more breaks from this in order to do stuff like this every once in a while. I don't always have to be Yu-Gi-Oh! It's just the main face of my channel. I can do other stuff if you guys want. So, again, just let me know down in the comments below. Let me know your top 10 favorite Pokemon, too. I'm assuming some of you guys have to play this, too. Can't just be me. Of course, don't forget to also like my page on Facebook, where you can get in contact with me there. Like this video and subscribe to my channel for further content. And until next time, peace.